this is Sheets by himself or by myself. Bobby's not going to be here to record the early look, but he will be here live to go over the live before lock and all that stuff. Let me just first enable subscriber chat. And then we can get moving. Subscriber. And then we'll do this. And we'll enable the live chat replay as well. I didn't even know you could do that, or that was even an issue. Okay, so I do hope that everybody had a good weekend, both personally and in DFS. DFS was a little this, a little that, as usual. NFL was not the greatest for me, but had a good Saturday betting MMA. That's totally other discussion. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over the big NBA slate tonight. And again, we there's news that's probably going to come that we don't know about, but I haven't really decided how I want to do this, whether I'm going to go game by game or just kind of do an overall slate breakdown. So we'll just kind of go back and forth. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll at least have an idea of what the slate's going to look like. And maybe we'll do one lineup build, or at least several lineup builds maybe throughout the course of this. Feel free to fire the chat off, and I will do my best to respond. So what you're looking at here is just the sheets, which is basically my projection set as of noon, which is not particularly relevant, but not particularly irrelevant either. But with respect to process, I mean, this is something I like to do sometimes. You can look at you can see this on TrueDFS as well. It's displayed a little differently, but the way I like to look at this is almost sort of like cocky in a way. I just take a step back, look at the guys, I rate them a couple of ways. Let's look at it just by points per dollar and just see what it looks like. Just bang, right? So I don't see anybody projected over 6x, so there's no real overwhelming value. Well, All right, no problem. It was a little bit bizarre. Hey, there you go. All right, very nice. So, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by myself, let's take a look at the oh goodness the slate from a completely top-down perspective. Okay? Uh, and then we'll get into the game by game. So we'll look and we see that we have very few players rated above 6x, which has been the case throughout the course of the season, if you want to know the truth. But at the top of the heap, you do have guys like Clint Capella and then Vince Williams. And the first thing I'll just kind of notice is that I have two guys right here from Memphis in the same, rated pretty highly. So maybe the Memphis side might be something to stack. One's 5,500 and one's 4,600. So that would seem to make a lot of sense. And the other thing I'll notice is that Capella and Trae Young, again, both from the same team, they correlate relatively decently. They run pick and roll together. And maybe you play two of them together. And this is sort of the way I look at hockey in a way. Before I get into the stacking and before I get into the individual plays and the game by game, I just take a real quick look and see what the slate looks like. Another thing that I see is that, you have Embiid, Jokic, and Luka, all of whom project extremely well, all of whom you really want to play, and all of whom are probably going to be 5% owned because there's just no value to get them in. And this has been kind of the theme of NBA DFS as well. Clay, you can hear me, right? Just everybody, just give me a thumbs up, give me something. Let me know that I'm just not talking to myself. I think it should be okay. Okay, great. All right. So now what we're going to do is let's go back into the game by game look, and let's just kind of go one at a time. So first game on the board, we have a 7:00 game, Clippers against the Pacers, and just again to see what this looks like. You have 7:00, 7:00, 7:00, 7:30, 7:30, 7:30, big slate, then a 9, a couple of 10, so pretty well spread out across the board. And Clippers, Indiana, I mean, this is going to be a very high total game, so you'd expect it to project pretty well. And when we go look at the actual sheets, I mean, it's just kind of okay. You do have Kawhi Leonard, who's kind of a standout here at 8,600. And we've talked about this slate dynamic before. In the absence of really, really great value, these good mid-range plays really do stand out. So if you want to start off with something, you could just start off with a really, really good play of Kawhi Leonard here at 8,600. You're probably not going to be able to get up to the big studs, but he's a very, very strong play in this game. As far as points per dollar go, I'm not really getting to, anybody on Indiana, so it's going to be hard to stack it or anything like that, but that's fine. Again, I'm not even so sure how important stacking is in the NBA anyway. If you had to play somebody, it would be Tyrese Halliburton, but boy, oh boy, that's really tough to do. 11-1, where it's already tough to play him anyway, and if you can play him, you'd probably find the 400 for Embiid or something like that. So as far as correlation and stacking goes, sure. You could try to do that, but I think that we can leave this game with this thought that Kawhi Leonard's a very, very strong play if your lineups are not going to, demand that you play, the spend up. So very best play of the game, and I really don't like much of anything else at all. Chicago, Philly. All right, so we mentioned Embiid. All right, so again, we shouldn't discount how good of a play this is. So if you can get to him, terrific. But we'll run some lineups, and I'm just not convinced that you can do it. But if you want to have some fun, let's try it. Let's put in Embiid right at the beginning, just to kind of see what it would look like, and let's immediately put those two Memphis values in. And we're going to get to that game in a minute, but a little bit. But let's for now put in those 2 point per dollar plays I saw, which is like Vince Williams and who's the other one? Aldama. And see what it looks like. So, I mean, these are the best value plays I see on the board, you know. And so if you play Embiid and Kawhi, for example, you're only going to be able to play $49.50 a man. And if you just even do a cursory look at the sheets, you sort by point per dollar. I mean, there's literally nothing. You know what I mean? Like the first guy is Bagley. He's rated like 30th point per dollar, and that's very, very tough. So it's going to be a choice. I mean, you could play Embiid, but now you're not going to be playing Kawhi, which is also fine. So Embiid plus 5,500 guys, that certainly is one way to build. All right, next we have, we'll take a look and make sure there's nothing else from that game that we like. Philly, anything on Chicago, it's just gross. Just not really. Houston, Cleveland, I can't imagine anything would be that great from that game, but let's just kind of take a look at it. Again, I'm just sorting everything by point per dollar, and you're just not getting anything. You know, let's look. Who's the first Houston or Cleveland guy? Oh, by the way, we did see Vooch, by the way, for Chicago, so we're gonna get back to that in a second. Because all the centers are going to look good, as will Jarrett Allen, right? So Jarrett Allen looks pretty good, but aside from that, I mean, I just don't see anything. I just don't see anything from that game at all. Anybody from Houston, anybody from Cleveland show up? No, not really. But before I leave this, let me go back to this Vooch play and put him in. So if you played Vooch or Jarrett Allen for that matter, then you probably can find lineups and find the money, so to speak, to get Kawhi in, right? So you could either play like an Embiid or Kawhi Vooch or Kawhi, what's his name that I just mentioned, Jarrett Allen. I think those all make perfect sense. But as far as anything going on the Houston side, yeah, so that's the thing, Clay. I mean, when you're analyzing it, sure, but like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So, like, let's go back to this. So you sort by point per dollar. Probably the best, you know, point per dollar play is going to be like Capella, right? And it's also pretty expensive enough. And Embiid and Jokic are both going to look really, really good. I mean, all these guys are good plays, but it's just going to be tough to play these guys. But we're going to try. So likewise, like I said, if you wanted to do this, you can go back to Capella. But we haven't gotten to Atlanta yet. But these are. Why is this X'd out? Oh, because I'm just stuck on Memphis. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so we'll get to Atlanta in a minute, but yeah. So you can put Capella in there, and he's questionable anyway. You know, so this all is a little bit funky. All right, so Cleveland, Houston, as I mentioned, low total game. Nobody really projects all that well. Not surprising that you don't really get so much from that game. All right, Charlotte and Toronto. What do we got? I mean, again, this is just like a gross game. Total. Schroeder. Now, this is what's going to happen. You know, in the absence of value, you're going to have to dip into this range. So Schroeder at 6,500, even though he's only 5x, is probably going to be a pretty good play, which is why he's 20% owned. You know, we talked about this last time. Or you can get to Siakam or something like that. So those would be the guys to play from Toronto. But again, if you do that, and this is probably the way lineups are going to end up building, right? So you're going to play Schroeder. You know, you're probably not going to be able to play guys like Embiid. Or, like I said, if you want, you'll be able to play Embiid this way, but now you probably won't be able to play Kawhi Leonard, right? So in either case, I think Schroeder does fit. And so this is one of those, it's almost like an optical illusion. I mean, it doesn't look that great as an overall play, maybe like 20th overall. But I bet you when we run our lineups, actually, he's going to show up as one of the top owned guys on the slate, just because the way, you could play lots of different ways with his price tag. Charlotte didn't really get to anything. I mean, even Nick Richards, right? I mean, usually we get to somebody. Let's just take a look. I'm not even getting to him. So looks like Charlotte's going to be off the board for me today. All right, Detroit, Atlanta. We mentioned this before. High total game, and a couple of guys are projecting well. That would be Capella, as I mentioned before, and Trae Young from the Atlanta side here. And, these guys you could play together because you get some, pick and roll correlation between these two. And I bet you Trae Young's going to be really low owned. Just because, again, it's just tough to get to guys in general here. And now we're seeing kind of the light of day here. We're seeing what's going to happen. These guys like Aldama and Vince Williams, presuming their projections hold, are just going to be just flying off the shelves as far as ownership goes, I think. Now, it would be nice if there was somebody on Detroit we can play. And I think I noticed somebody when I was looking through before for something else. Yeah, so Cade Cunningham at 8,200 makes a lot of sense, considering that you might want to play Atlanta. And the other one I saw down the list here was Bojan, and also Bagley at 4,900. So this could actually be a pretty sneaky. Well, I don't even know how sneaky it's going to be, but remember, we already said that we could probably play something like Kawhi. So instead of playing him, we'll play Cade at 82. And we could even, we could mess around here. I don't know if we can do all of this, but if you feel like playing like all these Detroits, including, well, Wiseman's good on FanDuel. We'll get to that in a minute. But we can get Bagley in the game here. You could almost do all of this. Probably not all of it, but like if you just want to do one of these, you could create a cool little game stack with Atlanta, Detroit. Now let's just take a look at this injury designation. Left bone bruise. He missed the Saturday game. Well, if he's out, then this Okongwu becomes a super smash. You might even be able to play Fernando coming off the bench as a probably pretty good play. So one of these guys, either Capella or Okongwu, I think whoever's starting, well, you play Okongwu off the bench, 63, probably not. But this is Atlanta, Detroit. You can do some stuff over here. Bagley, I just mentioned, Bojan, Cade Cunningham, and on the Atlanta side, Trae and Capella. All that makes sense. What's his name? For Minnesota, Cat had an amazing game the other day, but he's not projecting all that well. Who else in this game? Minnesota, Miami. These are two very low-scoring teams, which is why nothing is showing up. Just literally nothing. So obviously, if guys are injured, that's one thing. But in the absence of that, I would just pass this game. All right. So we already talked about two of these guys a little bit. Memphis. So you have Santi Aldama and I was about to say Vince Williams Jr. Anybody else from Memphis show up here? Okay, Jaren Jackson Jr. at 8,300. But I think that if you're going to do that, they're just better players in that price range, just better opportunities. So I probably wouldn't do that. I would stick with these two really highly rated players. Derrick Rose is out, so I guess it's what makes these guys better. Desmond Bane, 8,900. I guess he's okay, but this is where the value is. Aldama and Vince Williams. Now again, it would be nice if on the OKC side we were able to find something. So let's just take a look. All right, so Chet Holmgren, center, 7,600. He's gonna be low owned because quite frankly, he's not the best play. But if you play him alongside of these Memphis values, I mean, you might even be able to do the Desmond Bain, or you're not going to be able to do this other stuff, right? But or you might be able to go to Jaren Jackson Jr. at 8,300. Now again, you can't play everything. Right? If you play that, you can't play probably Kawhi. Now, something else is interesting is that Jaren Jackson Jr.'s center power forward. We prefer to not use him at center, but then again, at power forward, Aldama is power forward only eligible, and V Williams Jr. is only small forward eligible, which actually helps. So now we can put another forward. So if we wanted to play Desmond Bain or Jaren Jackson Jr., we can do this. And you stack Holmgren. I don't think we can afford Shea. Let's see if there's anybody else from OKC that looks good here. Not really. It just looks like Chet for me. So this is another kind of sneaky stack that you can play. I want to say sneaky because you have the Memphis side, which people are going to play. But you run it back with Holmgren in a position that is loaded. I don't think people are going to play him, and this game can kind of get moving. All right. Brooklyn, Utah. Hold on a minute. Let's pull something up. Brooklyn, Utah doesn't look like it would be intriguing at all. Let me just see. Dinwiddie, 7,500. Hang on a minute. One sec. Okay, let's pull up the sheets and see if we can't find anything. I really don't think we will. Boom, where are we? Brooklyn, Utah, literally nothing. I'm just nothing. I could force something, but there's just nothing on the board. I mean, Dinwiddie 7,500 is my best play right now, so the game just looks like, right? It looks like it's gonna be a pass. I think I lost you guys as far as my crap. Sorry, I lost you guys on my chat. I gotta find you. Hold on a minute. There you are. All right, Dallas, Denver. All right, so you have two studs that you would really like to play, right? They're going to be low owns and they're really difficult to get to, right? Either Luka or Jokic. Do you want to split hairs and say that Luka's a better that Jokic is a better play because he's a little bit cheaper? Yeah, I mean, sort of. I mean, not that big of a deal, though. And Jokic takes up a center position, so I think it's kind of a wash. Who do you play between Embiid, Jokic, and Luka, if you can even do it? I don't know. I mean, I think they're all look good. You certainly can't play them both together, which obviously would be nice. So I think that, again, it sort of depends what value opens up, but again, if you play Luka, then you're doing something like this. Williams Aldama, and now you're at 5,500 a man, which is why you get sometimes Schroeder showing up, right? Now you're at 5,300 a man. It's tough to get to these guys, which makes lineup construction difficult. But definitely, if more value opens up, sure, take a shot. Try to get them in. And we're going to do SaberSim builds in a minute, and we're going to see what we get. I'm going to predict that we don't get any of the studs, but maybe. I don't know. Maybe they just jam like all this stuff in. As far as anybody else on Dallas or uh, Denver, I don't really see anything, but I'll take a quick look. No, it doesn't look like anything. Which is why all those other value guys I mentioned are just going to be just crammed. There's just very, very few options. All right, Washington, Sacramento, huge total. One thing that happened yesterday, you had Daniel Gafford, who set his career high in points. He was just amazing. He scored like 50 fantasy points. There are two guys that totally smashed. Like Gafford last night, he played 35 minutes, which I've never seen him do. All right, actually, here he did. He had 26 real-life points and 17 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 56 fantasy points. And then you also had a huge smash game out of Tyus Jones. He had 60 fantasy points, including 40 minutes of action, 22 points, 11 assists, 6 steals. So both these guys smashed, but they're on the road going into from Phoenix to Sacramento back-to-back, and it's going to be a tough day, I think. I would not necessarily go right back to them, but let's take a look and see if what looks good. Okay, so Sabonis 9,800 for Sacramento. All right, that's something. Washington, anybody showing up here? Not even Gafford. They're too wise to this. I mean, the back-to-back is tough. Everything's just rough down here. So it looks as though you could play Sabonis, but then what you're risking is blowout risk. And you're also risking using a center position. But I think it's fine. It's definitely beneficial that it's a late game in case you're waiting on some news. Like, let's say you don't know if AD or let's say that LeBron is threatening to be out. You could play Sabonis at 9,800, and then if it turns out that LeBron is out, then you could swap him to AD. So that's something you can do. But aside from that, just not a lot here. All right, and finally, Knicks against the Lakers. There's one neat little one-off that's just kind of showing up for me. It's kind of out of nowhere, and that would be, I think, Julius Randle. So, yeah. So these $8,600 guys can be somewhat valuable on slates like this. We talked about Kawhi a little bit. And look, Randall projects 2 points lower, but he's going to be significantly lower owned, I believe. Right now it's him with 11 and Kawhi with 16. I think that's that gap's going to widen. What do I know? We'll take a look at it later, but that's my instinct. Nobody else really showing up, at least on the projections. And all I can say about the Lakers is, as usual, if one of those guys are out, then we'll play the other one and other guys from the Lakers. But we're not going to know that for a while. But I am presuming that they're all going to be playing. So what is this? What, you may ask, does this mean to the average man? Well, let's do a SaberSim build, and let's see what ends up happening. And I haven't done this yet. You could hand build a structure like this and be sort of happy with it, but I just want to run this and see what we would get right now. And this is for my own benefit as well, because I have to set up my contest sims for later. Just to remind you how to do that. Ooh. Why am I doing this? Does that have the MMA thing set up? Oh, yeah. Trying to import the MMA projections into the NBA. Yeah, very, very helpful there. Cam Thomas, we have to change his name from Cameron to Cam. And apply. Exclude unlisted players. Save. I don't know why that's still there. And we'll build 50 lineups and see what we get. I really think that, based on the way these SaberSim builds have looked in the last couple of weeks with this pricing dynamic, you're going to probably get 100% like Aldama and the other guy, and Vince Williams. And you'll probably get like a huge chunk of Dennis Schroeder. That would be my guess. mean, they just fit like the different types of lineup builds. Or you know what it could be? It could be point per dollar plays that we didn't even get down to because they were such bad plays, but they made everything else just work. So some 4x type value, like, I don't know, like Emmanuel Quickly or something like that. Let's just take a look. Now again, we're just going to be looking at the Saber score rankings, and then we're going to run it with the contest sims. All right, as projected, 100% Vince Williams, 100% Aldama, 95% Capella, and there it is, 84% the aforementioned Dennis Schroeder. Other guys I didn't get to, I guess, was Jamal Murray showing up, D'Anthony Melton, Bagley. One thing you're not seeing is Joel Embiid. You are not seeing Luka Doncic, and you are not seeing Nikola Jokic. So this is what I like to do every single day. Let's first we got to upload these to my dummy lineups, and then we're gonna run the contest sims and see if that makes any kind of difference. All right, so we're just gonna save all these for now, and then you right click, add contest sim, and it populates this data for me. My exposure is not set to anything, Clay. I mean, you know me by now, right? I mean, I don't. Okay, hold on a minute. I should say it this way. At this stage of the build, I don't do anything. I'll show you. Like right now, we'll save the alley-oop. We'll save all these things. Save. Oh, I can't save a satellite one. So what we're going to do is run the contest sims. And right now I've set no exposure set. You know, and don't say my core. I don't have a core. You know, like in advance. Like this, I guess, becomes my core, meaning this becomes my highest owned bunch of players. But it happened that way. You know what I mean? Like I didn't first say I want to play these guys, and then put them in. I mean, I just put my projections up, and then let Saberson kind of run them, and this became my core. And I don't know. I think that is a distinction to be made. Because the idea of a core is you say, okay, you start with these, then you build your lineups. I built my lineups, and this is what I have. I think it's a little different. But let's see if there are other things we want to do. Like if you don't want to play 100% Vince Williams or 100%, you could just, limit it. And I'll show you how to do that. But let's first sort, say, the fadeaway by risk-adjusted ROI, and it works out to be exactly the same. It's so funny. Almost exactly the same. And that's one thing that you'll find is in NBA, there's not that much different between the regular Saber score builds and the builds that even try to attempt to do a contest simulation. All right, so we're gonna cheat in a minute. Okay, let's first put these up here. So this is the way we're gonna cheat. All right. So you didn't like yet 100% of a guy, I bet, right? So what you can do is you go back into the fadeaway risk-adjusted ROI, for example, and then we just, well, you can either get less of them or you do this. Start by making min uniques more than one. So now how about min uniques 2? Does that get you any different? No, not really. How about min uniques 3? No. Hey, there you go. You got your first non-Aldama lineup. How about min uniques 4? Okay, now you get less Aldama, but they still want you to play Vince Williams. Or you could even go min unique 5. And so this is the way. This is one way you can get, a little less concentrated and still be within your pool of lineups. Now that's a very good question, All Star. Um, and I know you don't want to hear this, but and this is like I hate it. I hate when people say this, but it just depends on the slate. It just really does. Like if you have like ultra confidence in your leans, I will pick. I will do min unique one honestly. But when you are not as confident in your leads, then I will do min uniques at least 2 in all sports. And when you're trying to, intentionally get less of a player, I think this is a very, very good technique to use. Or the other thing you could do, let's just save these for now. I actually kind of like this, so before I forget, we'll save these into the alley-oop just for the time being. I'm never going to use these, but that's my process. If you didn't like doing it this way, you could just literally just go over here and go min exposure, max exposure instead of 80, you just put in like 60. And then what's cool about this is that it will automatically redo the lineups for you. You don't have to rebuild or anything like that. So that's another thing you could do. But I've always found really that when people say I just don't want more than 15% or I want more than 60%, that's like a number that people are really just making up. You know what I mean? Like who am I to say that I should only have 50% of a guy? What does that mean? If you have 100% of your lineups that look amazing because they happen to have one guy in it, I mean, I think you should just keep it that way. And I really do. I know it's risky, but I'll tell you what's also risky. It's risky to give up the best EV lineups. So one thing you could do is if you don't want to take the risk of playing 100% guy across 100 lineups, just play one lineup. Or just play 3 lineups or something like that. I mean, it's the same thing really, but that could overcome that mental barrier, I guess. Okay, and then what I have to remember to do, always remember to do this, is just re-upload these. Now again, it's 100 hours till post time, so curious if I have any of these guys in. Once Embiid gets ruled out, and Paul Reed is huge chalk, and God knows what. Right? Yeah, I'll tell you yeah, that's a pretty decent analogy. That's a pretty good example. With me and Pantoja, it was a little different. I had no problem getting a lot of him. I just didn't want the rest of my lineups with him to be chalk. So I don't know if you watched the video I did on the lineup build, which I did Saturday morning. I spent like I thought that Colby and Pantoja were both smash plays, but I thought they were going to be both really popular, which they were. So I made sure that the lineups I played with them, okay, were just otherwise kind of unique. That's a little something different. But anyway, yeah, Pantoja, fine style. When I said that he was clearly the best play, well, I mean, 143 points is rough business. No one's winning without that. That's for sure. Fun part of MMA was the betting breakdown. I don't know if anybody here watches that. It was freaking beyond crazy. We hit like 4 long shots in a row, which was kind of insane. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't say I don't want so much of this. You really shouldn't. But if you feel uncomfortable with it, you could go min uniques. But remember, you are sacrificing something. You're sacrificing having your best lineups. Okay. All right. Yeah, I have to say, All-Star, I totally forgot that I did it. I have to say that I saw the Metafield one when it came in, and then I saw it came in 7-1. Wow, that's amazing. And then I looked back and I saw my account was higher than I thought it was going to be. And I knew that Lipsky got the sub, but I forgot. I really forgot that I bet it. I literally had forgotten. I'm like, wow, let's go. Anyway, let's you know what? Well, as long as we're here, all right. Let's do FanDuel just because, and then we'll get out of here. And then I'm going to do a hockey, and I'm going to do a football as well. But let's just won't go through the full game by game, but just to see what an early lineup build for FanDuel looks like. There is one player that stood out, at least specifically to FanDuel, as far as price goes, and I will mention it. It was Xavier Tillman. I think he's 4,100 at the center position. So that's I don't know if it's going to show up, but let's take a look at it. Thomas. And I think I'm only gonna play one lineup on FanDuel today. So let's look at. By the way, let's look at the sheets here for FanDuel. I'll show you what I mean. FanDuel. Yeah, actually, there are two guys. You have Wiseman and Tillman, both that show up over here when maybe it was not as much. So let's take a look and see what we would get. I wonder if you get the Wiseman and the Tillman. Be interesting. Let's see. No. Not really. Same guys. Oh, you get Isaac Okoro. Oh, that's a lot of fun. Glad I'm only playing one lineup over there. So this would be the difference. Actually, let's put 50 lineups up. See what it looks like. And here we'd be getting, what's our exposures here? We'd be getting 90% Aldama, same stuff, but Okoro. 4,200 at small forward shooting guard. All right, that's the other value, and those are tough ones to play, man, because he can get 0 fantasy points in 35 minutes. Very glad I'm not playing too much FanDuel because I know what would end up happening. I would end up playing 50 lineups and have 50 of them with Okoro in them, and that would be one of those where I would anti-Pantoja myself. I would say, even though he's like, well, it's a little different because he's a good play, but I know that he's busting. And I know that's kind of ignorant to say it that way, but I just, just too many times he shows up as a great point per dollar play and he gets 6 fantasy points. So I would be forced to play him and I would lose. So I'm probably not going to do it. Okay, that looks to be about it, except to say, what is SaberSim doing with this lineup? They're putting both DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and Capella all on the same lineup with no run back for that matter. And the Nick Batum play. Okay, I am definitely not playing FanDuel today. Okay, that's going to do it. I'm not going to go live for the NHL or the Showdown Early thing. Because I always just give you guys a little heads up. Usually during the day, I mean, I got calls coming up, people, whatever, and I just don't like to have to stop a live thing. I'm shocked I made it through this, and that's why I have to do the Zoom recording so that I can pause if I need to. Anyway, we're gonna go live at 6 o'clock, and hopefully Bobby doesn't disagree with all of my takes here, and that'll do it. Thanks for the input, All-Star. Thanks for the questions, Clay. Thanks for the questions, Jolly. Thanks for the questions, everybody, and thanks for the participation. If Bobby were here, he would say make sure that you smash the like button and hit the subscribe and do all that good stuff. All right. That's it. Good luck, everybody.